A pinfire cartridge is an obsolete type of metallic firearm cartridge in which the priming compound is ignited by striking a small pin which protrudes radially from just above the base of the cartridge. Invented by Frenchman Casimir Lefaucheur in the 1830s but not patented until 1835, it was one of the earliest practical designs of a metallic cartridge. Its history is closely associated with the development of the breech loader, which replaced muzzle-loading weapons. History. The Swiss gunmaker Samuel Jonas Pauly patented the first breech-loading cartridge in 1812. This was for use in a shotgun with fixed barrels which was loaded by lifting a breech block on the top. French gunmaker Henri Roux attempted to improve this cartridge in the 1820s, but a constantly primed cartridge was felt by many to be too dangerous, and many breech-loading guns reverted to using an unprimed cartridge. This was fired by a separate percussion cap which was used on the still dominant muzzle-loading guns. Casimir Lefaucheur of Paris decided in 1832 to patent a breech loader where the barrel hinged downwards to reveal the breech ends. These still used a separate percussion cap. Though used before this, as seen in surviving pinfire shot shells that lists the names of early gun makers he signed contracts with in 1833 and 1834. In 1835 he was granted an addition to the 1832 patent for a new type of cartridge in which the cartridge's priming compound is ignited by striking a small pin which protrudes radially from just above the base of the cartridge. These pins fitted into a small groove cut in the top of each barrel end and made it easy to see if the gun was loaded. The cartridge used metal bases, often brass, with paper tubes which were usually loaded by the shooter or his staff but were not entirely gas-tight. This reduced the force of the charge and allowed powder residue and gas to escape. The pinfire cartridge was greatly improved by the 1846 patent, number 1963, by Benjamin Houlier of Paris, which introduced a base wad and effectively made the cartridge gas-tight, which greatly improved the performance. They were cheap and clean shooting. These improved pinfire guns grew in popularity in France, and some were imported by British gun makers to overwhelming indifference on the part of the gun users there. They were prejudiced technically against a gun that broke in the middle, despite the much vaunted benefits of breech loading. They owned muzzle loaders of exquisite perfection, considered themselves the best engineers in the world, inventing the Industrial Revolution, and had a poor view of the French, the old enemy and an unreliable ally. It wasn't until the Great Exhibition of 1851 was held in London that breech-loading guns were taken more seriously by British and American gun makers in particular. The display of a Lefaucheur breech-loading gun inspired English apprentice gunmaker Edwin Charles Hodges, 1831–1925, to make an improved copy and persuade leading London gunmaker Joseph Lang that this was the gun of the future. Lang was universally credited to be the first established British gunmaker to produce pinfires in any numbers. His first weapon of this new type was produced in 1853. Other British gunmakers including Lancaster, Blanche and Riley were similarly inspired by French originals, and improved pinfire breech loaders became the new type of gun which by 1857/8 every fashionable British prince and titled gentleman wanted to have. E.C. Hodges continued to make a good living as a specialist independent maker of breech-loading actions commissioned by leading gunmakers such as Boss, Lancaster, Egg, Grant, Atkin, Rigby, Dixon, Petty, Woodward, Army and Navy, and many others. After Casimir's death in 1852, his son Eugene continued to market the pinfire design with great success. It became increasingly popular in Europe, and large numbers of shotguns and revolvers, often called Lefaucheur guns after their inventor whoever the maker was, were manufactured from the mid-1850s until the 1890s. They were quicker and easier to load than percussion weapons with loose black powder, percussion caps, and bullet, and they were also much more likely to fire reliably when wet. Pinfire cartridges were available in a large number of sizes for various types of weapon. While pinfire shotguns declined from the early 1860s after the introduction of mass-produced centerfire shotgun cartridges, pinfire revolvers in particular became very successful and widespread, being adopted by the armies of France, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, Sweden, and others. They were also used during the American Civil War, although sometimes despised because of their low power compared to Colt and other percussion revolvers. Some navies also adopted them, sea service examples often being made out of brass which is largely unaffected by the corrosion caused by salt. Pinfire became obsolete once reliable rimfire and centerfire cartridges became available because without a pin which needed a lining in the slot in the chamber wall they were quicker to load. They were also safer because they had no protruding pin which could cause the ammunition to accidentally detonate during rough handling, particularly of loose ammunition. Current status. Although pinfire cartridges and shotgun shells are technically obsolete, as pinfire guns have not been made in any numbers for 100 years, enthusiasts of vintage weaponry often make pinfire cartridges from modern materials and shoot their old guns. As regards pistols, some modern novelty miniature guns are manufactured in very tiny calibers, such as 2 mm. Although not practical weapons, they use pinfire ammunition because the caliber is too small for centerfire or rimfire. Antique pinfire firearms and cartridges are available on the collector market and modern reloading kits exist which contain specialized cartridges which can be hand-loaded, though the process is far more complex than for centerfire cartridges.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.